Hey guys, Aaron Cybertron Zhang here, and today I'm back with another episode of Road to Ranked where I climb the online series 12 ladder and provide live commentary as I go. In the previous episode, we featured a really powerful team with Yveltal and Groudon. This is one of the most consistent teams that I've tried out in the last couple of weeks, and so thank you to Philip for the team. Details are in the description below, including a rental, paste, and tournament/team report. If you want to skip to the battle, let the title and the thumbnail are referring to that is the final game today, but as always, I encourage you to check out all the games as they're pretty exciting. So thanks so much as always for watching Road to Ranked. If you enjoy, please share your support by leaving a like on the video. I'd really appreciate it. And question of the day today, I want to know what teams you expect to see at the upcoming regional championships. There are two taking place this weekend, one in the US and one in Europe, and I'm actually commentating one for the live Pokemon stream at twitch.tv/Pokemon Saturday and Sunday. So hope to see some of you there, and yeah, let me know what you expect to see. So let's get started. All right, first game of the day, and we're up against Zacian and Reshiram. I think Reshiram's actually probably one of the better restricteds that you can have against this team, because with Assault Vest, you don't take that much damage from Yveltal, from Venu, from Regieleki. So, yeah, I'm excited to fight against this. I think, you know, like I mentioned, this Yveltal Groudon core is really good into a lot of the more common restricted duos at the moment, but Reshiram, a more niche restricted mon that has a very favorable matchup into, say, Zacian. So, like, ideally, we Dynamax Groudon in this matchup because they don't have any ground resistances or immunities, but I have to worry about Intimidate from Incineroar and Will-O-Wisp from Sableye. I think Sableye lead here is actually pretty annoying to deal with. I do have Taunt on Incineroar, so I can use it just to get a Taunt off, which is interesting. This actually just might be a game for a Groudon Venu lead. Because Venusaur's Sleep Powder here is excellent, in my opinion. And since the matchup is not that favorable for us, having a 75% chance to shut down like one of the biggest threats on my opponent's team, I think is pretty valuable here. Yveltal in the back, and probably Incin for the last one, just for Intimidate into the Zacian. You could make an argument for Regieleki and Electro Web as well, but I think I value Incin a little bit more here. So, yeah, I actually think on paper, Reshiram is a pretty rough matchup for this team. So, we'll see. I haven't had any experience actually fighting against it, but I think if it were just Reshiram, maybe it's not as much of a problem, but they also have Incineroar and Sableye for Will-O-Wisp pressure, so you combine all of those, and it's like, okay, Groudon itself has a decent matchup in a Reshiram, but if they lower my attack, then it's a lot less effective. And they are going to go with Sableye and Reshiram. Okay. So, I'm decently okay with this lead, because the thing is, I pressure with Sleep Powder with Venusaur and Precipice Blades with Groudon, right? So if you're my opponent on turn 1, you could say Taunt into Venusaur. I could even max the Venu, which would be an interesting consideration here. Turn 1 is so interesting immediately, because they could just Will-O-Wisp into Groudon, they could Fake Out or Taunt Venusaur. Man, call me crazy, but I honestly want to just max the Venusaur and just Vine Lash into Precipice Blades on turn 1. I'm kind of down for it because I think if you're my opponent, you're going to try really hard to cover for the Sleep Powder, and I want to eliminate Sableye as quickly as possible in this matchup. So I'm going for a slightly unorthodox Dynamax here, but the only thing this like really loses to is if Sableye actually breaks the Focus Sash on Venu on turn 1 with something like a Fake Out. Otherwise, I would expect like Quash or Taunt onto the Venusaur slot, or yeah. Or it could just be Will-O-Wisp on a Groudon, which I'd be okay with here. So they're going to max Reshiram. I think the reality is that Reshiram is really good offensively into pretty much everything I have here, and then the Sableye, you know, gives it a nice amount of support as well. So I got the lead that I was expecting, but even then, like Venu Groudon's an okay option, but it's not like I feel amazing about this turn 1 play, right? Okay, cool. They go for Quash. Excellent. Because we have Focus Sash, that's irrelevant, essentially. Although it meant that if I actually just clicked, like, Sleep Powder and Swords Dance on turn 1, we would have been in amazing shape. But I honestly don't mind here because of the Focus Sash. Okay. Look at that amount of damage from Precipice Blades, by the way. Oh my gosh. And so in doing this, I not only get rid of the Sableye, but I also set up Vine Lash, right? So like that turn 1 trade, in my opinion, is excellent for me. And that's one of the reasons why I like the Focus Sash on Venusaur here rather than something like a Koba Berry or a Life Orb, because it allows us to, in these situations, be able to threaten with a Sleep Powder as well as Gigantamax, and both options are really threatening here. So Sleep Powder actually would have been okay, but the thing is, if I miss there, then on turn 2, my opponent can just like Will-O-Wisp onto the... Wait, they're going to copy the Venu slot. Okay. That is actually pretty annoying right now. I don't know the item on it. I think my best action here is to just pivot Groudon out into Incin. And then just Max Guard here. And then next turn fake out the Venu slot and then Max Quake. So the good thing is we know the Ditto's moveset because it's obviously Venusaur's moveset. So if you go for Frenzy Plant at any point, you're completely exposed the subsequent turn. The only downfall with the play I'm going for here is maybe they just one-shot Incin with like a Max Quake from Reshiram onto that slot. But I'm not trying to risk the speed tie between the Venus, and there's a decent chance they're Choice Scarfed as well, right? Which would allow them to just outspeed me for sure. Okay. Oh, they actually went for Frenzy Plant onto the Venus slot. That's interesting. Rather than Earth Power. I feel like that would have just lost them the game, honestly, if I actually, like, sacrificed Venu there. Huh, that's interesting. Their last Pokemon we expect to be Zacian, right? So, fake out into the Ditto slot here, and Max Quake into... The Reshiram slot is fine, but I'm not sure I actually love that. I guess I kind of have to fake out the Venu slot right now, though. I just, like, then am in a position for my opponent to pick up a double knockout the next turn, which doesn't make me super comfortable. I'm actually going to fake out and Max Quake the Ditto slot instead, I think. This also allows me to see how fast they are. I mean, they move before me, so yeah, I don't know. Like, the Ditto being Scarfed here makes the most sense to me. Okay, I don't KO it, but that's fine. So this was like a weird situation where I know my opponent has Zacian in the back. Yes, I could just fake out Venu and then Max Quake Reshiram, but then Zacian comes out and then it's like you threaten Earth Power onto me. Max Worm win onto Incin. We actually survived thanks to the special defense boost. Okay, that's actually a huge deal because it means I can conserve the Incineroar for Intimidate and a fake out onto the Zacian in the late game. So that's not bad. Dynamax ends now on my end. And if you are indeed Scarfed and locked into Frenzy Plant, that actually puts you in a really bizarre position. Okay. 2 turns of Sun left, 1 turn of Vine Lash left. I think here I'm okay switching Incin out into Yveltal. The only risk here is that they like Sleep Powder into that slot. But one, like I mentioned, I think Ditto might be Scarfed here. And 2, would you really Sleep Powder the Incin slot here? If so, that's a nice play. It's a very nice play. Ideally, we see their Venusaur go for Frenzy Plant again, because then it confirms to me the item. Yep, okay. I mean, I guess it could still be something else, but I just don't see what other item you're right. Like, why Frenzy Plant instead of Earth Power there, right? It's a ton of damage from Blue Flare, by the way, jeez. Okay. Oh, does that burn cause me issues? Because now I actually don't know if Sucker Punch is a KO. It should be a KO still. Because they keep going for Frenzy Plant here, I actually think I'd rather Sucker Punch Reshiram and sacrifice my Venusaur. I'm just nervous about Ditto actually surviving Sucker Punch now that I got burnt. Because then I could lose both of my Pokemon here, and that's a pretty big issue. And if they keep going for Frenzy Plant, then you can't attack the next turn. Meaning then I just bring an Incin to replace the Venusaur. Oh, they actually hard switch Ditto out into Zacian. Okay, I think that's a smart play, but my play that I went for ends up punishing them pretty heavily. And I guess the only awkward thing is now they can actually copy my Yveltal. Huh. Venu will get a nice Earth Power off into their Zacian, though, and then I'll have Incin. And like I said, I'm pretty sure that's Scarf on the Yveltal slot. I think that's a great switch by them, though, because I think if you just give up both Pokemon there, you obviously just lose the game immediately. So now you can bring out Yveltal. I'm curious what they want to like lock themselves into. Oblivion Wing is the move that makes the most sense, in my opinion. Ew, I wonder if a Frenzy Plant KOs Yveltal from that range. Because, like, I want to switch my Yveltal out right now into Groudon, set up the Sun, and then just Frenzy Plant into the Yveltal slot. Sets up the Sun, we outspeed. Yeah, I'm down for that. This is a really fun game one way or the other. The Ditto actually caused me a ton of problems here, but it's not like I had a super good way around it. It just feels like after the turn 1 that I had that I should have been in a very commanding position to win this game, but, you know, it's still anyone's game right now. And I'm also thinking if the Incin had fainted from the max Wormwind earlier, like, how bad of a position would I be in? I'm not sure. Zacian protects, okay, perfect. So now even if Yveltal like Sucker Punches is honestly fine. And they don't, okay, cool. So we get the Frenzy Plant off. Nice, and that gets the KO. Beautiful. The scary thing there is if I miss, like my opponent can have a huge window to come back into this game because like they ended up protecting Zacian, so it ended up being okay. Now we can just protect because we have Incin in the back. Actually, is it appropriate to protect there? I think Groudon switching out. I mean, I don't think Zacian's ever pulling off the comeback here because you're like Zacian's just really bad in like 1v2 scenarios where both Pokemon just threaten you with super effective damage. So yeah, this was a really scary matchup, but like I was like, I need to eliminate Sableye as quickly as possible so it can't disrupt the rest of my team. And by going for the Venusaur max rather than Groudon because we had Focus Sash, we actually got a ton of value out of Venusaur, right? I was able to KO the Sableye on turn 1, the Precipice Blades and the Reshiram did so much damage, and then we had the residual damage ticking as well. I can see why my opponent went for Frenzy Plant now that I think about it, because if you're Choice Scarfed, it's like you want to lock yourself into an attack. Well, I guess the awkward thing though is if they had actually gone for it, because they targeted my Venusaur slot rather than the Groudon slot, then you just would have had like a dead turn the subsequent turn and essentially have to sacrifice it. So yeah, I don't know. I still think Earth Power might be a little bit better there if you're Scarfed, but in the end, yeah, Ditto was actually really scary because like a Venusaur in Sun with Scarf outspeeding everything on my end actually causes some pretty big issues. But yeah, the main thing in this game was that we didn't let Reshiram pick up too many knockouts too quickly, and I think that gave us a pretty big advantage. So once again, that's one of the reasons why I love using this Yveltal Groudon team, because you have so much flexibility in Dynamaxes, and on turn 1, it's like really hard for my opponent to cover for Max Venu and Groudon. Interestingly enough, if I had actually just maxed Groudon and went for like, what, Max Quake plus Earth Power, I guess Zacian then comes out and then Sableye can quash you with Behemoth Blade, but I don't know. The lead ended up working out really nicely. So sometimes, like, you gotta just go with Groudon Venusaur because, like, your opponent doesn't have great weather control. And with the Focus Sash on Venusaur, it allows you to really have maximum pressure with both Pokemon at the same time, which I think is awesome. So let's keep things going. Next game here, up against rank 56 with Yveltal Kyogre, Lando, Rillaboom, Incin, and Tornadus. Okay, so pretty cool to see Yveltal plus Kyogre here, given that we're using Yveltal Groudon. If they didn't have Landorus, like Regieleki is such a clear Dynamax option, but with Landorus I gotta think a little bit more. The dynamic of this is awkward because they have Tailwind on Tornadus, so something like Tornadus Kyogre lead is really scary. Man, I'm almost thinking just Incineroar here, but then the thing is Tornadus can just protect as I go for Fake Out on turn 1. So one of the big questions I have is, does the Tornadus have Protect, actually? Venu does have Focus Sash here. I think in a best of 3, Venu would be really good, but in a best of 1, I don't feel nearly comfortable enough with it because my opponent is triple Flying type. So I feel like it should probably be Incineroar, Groudon, Yveltal. Bronzong could work. Just doesn't feel great. Okay, yeah, I'm gonna go Incineroar, Yveltal Groudon. I think this matchup is also a little bit shaky. Like, I don't feel super confident going into it, but the last example is the last game is a great example of how, like, I didn't think the matchup was amazing, but we were able to find some plays that could give us an early advantage, right? So matchups are only a part of Pokemon, and if, you know, it can be really tough, right? Sometimes you just lose because like it feels like there's nothing you can do, but your opponents still have to find the right path to victory. It is Tornadus Ogre, okay. This was the lead I was kind of expecting them to go for because the Kyogre covers for like Instant Bronzong if I led with that to cover for Trick Room. So turn 1 I could just Fake Out and then Max Lightning, right? But the problem here is that I don't have a safe option because either of these could switch out into Landorus-T to start the game. Ugh. Yeah, this is kind of a nightmare. Like, imagine if I Fake Out Tornadus, they protect, and Kyogre switches out into Landorus. That would be a very good play from them. They could also just double protect on turn 1. They could also just Tailwind Water Spout, but I honestly don't think that's the play for them. Ah, man, this is a terrible, like, even with the lead that I was expecting. I'm just going to Fake Out Tornadus Max Lightning Kyogre here. Yeah, they do switch out, though. I think it's Lando coming in. Okay, it's Rillaboom. That's actually not terrible to see, then. That also means they probably just didn't bring Landorus. Okay. That's a huge deal. I'll take this position. Now, the only thing is I could have doubled up onto Tornadus turn 1, and that would have actually put us in almost a game-winning position if they didn't protect Torn. But, like, I don't know. I feel like the Kyogre switch there was fairly obvious, but at the same time, if I don't cover for it, and it just gets a Water Spout or Origin Pulse off, I just take so much damage with both Pokemon, right? So it's like I'm still going to do an okay amount of damage into Rillaboom and change the terrain. Okay, yeah, so they didn't protect Tornadus, so I actually just could have KO'd it and denied them a Tailwind outright. But honestly, this is not that bad of a turn. Yeah, if Lando switched in there, I actually think the game is just over on turn 1. So I'm actually kind of surprised to see Rillaboom over Landorus, but I'll gladly take it. Okay, now you expect them to maybe Fake Out into the Incineroar slot. I'm down to pivot out into Yveltal. It's so crazy how much that turn 1 not determine the game, but like given their play, if I actually doubled up on Tornadus, you got to bring Kyogre or Zacian back out. I have the electric terrain up, so then it's a free Max Lightning into that slot, and then Instinct can just like pivot out. That's pretty wild. Okay. I'm just going to go out into Yveltal and Max Lightning here, I think. Conserving Instant for the Zacian, but I think Kyogre probably comes out after this turn. But the thing is, if Kyogre comes out, I can just pivot Yveltal into Groudon. So Tailwind, right? Oh, Rillaboom protects. Okay, that works for me. Tailwind, yeah. Yeah, I mean, the interesting thing here is now if you bring in Kyogre, if you bring Kyogre, I can just switch Yveltal into Groudon. Take a Geyser and just KO you with Max Lightning. This is a great example of how like Pokemon choice alone can really dictate a battle, because if my opponent uses Landorus-T over Rillaboom in this game, I actually think I lose just after turn 1. But because they brought Rillaboom instead, we're actually not in terrible shape. Okay, I think I am going to make the switch into Groudon here. It is like tempting to go for a strike here just to drop Kyogre's speed, because then I can outspeed it. Like the thing right now is like Kyogre can Dynamax and Max Guard. You could also max Rillaboom here and Quake into a Lecky, I suppose. I think I am just going to Lightning into the Kyogre, but we'll see. Yeah. I don't regret not doubling up on Torn in turn 1, though. I don't know, it's just... There's a lot that can go wrong there. But I guess I don't have a safe play in this game, because I can't cover for the Lando switch in. Oh, they just Water Spout. Okay. So... Like, at this point, then... Unless Rillaboom outspeeds and KOs the Alecki right now. Okay, they don't. Cool. So that's huge. Bye-bye, Kyogre. At this point, you're basically forced to max the Rillaboom, right? But that's not really that good for them, because I have Incin for Intimidate onto both Rillaboom and Zacian. We're going to go for Grassy Glide, yep. I'm totally okay with Groudon going down here, because it's not really going to give me that much value in this endgame anyway. So now I at least get a free switch and back out into Incineroar. And the interesting thing is, actually, I can just fake out... Oh my gosh, this whole time I was saying Zacian, though. They have Yveltals, they're restricted. I'm so used to playing against, oh my gosh, Kyogre Zacian. That's pretty funny. Maybe Yveltal does just sweep me now. I guess my other question is how fast the Yveltal is. I'm probably just going to Airstream. AV as the item there makes the most sense to me. It's so funny that I like just playing against Kyogre, Tornadus, Rillaboom. I'm like, yeah, it's obvious. It's always Zacian. The thing is, they can max Airstream here. I'm down a Parting Shot into Yveltal. And Hyper Beam into Rillaboom, so the lot. Does that make sense? No. I think their play is max Airstream onto the Incin slot and then Grassy Glide onto the Regieleki slot. So I could have switched the Regieleki out. My only hesitance in that is I don't want my Yveltal to just take a ton of damage. I'm just thinking about turn 1 of this game. Like, it is so wild how Max Lightning onto Fake Out Max Lightning into Tornadus would actually have been a game-winning play given what they ended up having. Oh wow. Okay, they're slower with Yveltal. Huge. So I just get the Hyper Beam off. To be honest, I think Thunderbolt in terrain would have gotten that knockout. So that was probably the better play. And they Darkness into a Regieleki. That is perfect. Okay, sick. So no Protect on the Rillaboom there, which is very nice. And now I get a Parting Shot. So it'll be a 1v2. And I still have Snarl. I do have Oblivion Wing as well. They are Life Orb, though, which is scary, right? So even with them being at -1, like, do I actually really win this trade-off? I'm not sure. So this endgame is actually very interesting, because it's 2v1, and they're at -1, and I have AV Yveltal, so you would think this favors my Yveltal decently right now. The other question is if I actually just click Thunderbolt onto Yveltal there and then Flare Blitz into Rillaboom. Nah, I really value the -1 on Yveltal here. It's so funny seeing small Yveltal like flap its wings simultaneously to Dynamax Yveltal right now. Okay, so I can't click Fake Out. I have Taunt, but it's not really that valuable. I have Flare Blitz, which is pretty good damage, especially with the sun still being up. Last turn of Tailwind on their end, and they're at -1. Like, rather than Flare Blitz here, I honestly don't mind just really dropping Yveltal's damage output. So, like, I'm down to Oblivion Wing here and Parting Shot, and basically stall out its Dynamax. Because I'm AV and their Life Orb, as long as they don't crit me in the endgame, it really favors my position. Yeah, and like, that doesn't even do that much damage. So, the reason I clicked Oblivion Wing here rather than Snarl is because Snarl can miss, and Oblivion Wing's good damage as well. So, like, even if they were to crit me there, Oblivion Wing would heal back a sizable amount. And, yeah, that's not that much damage, but it's fine, right? Because I should win the Yveltal versus Yveltal endgame war here. Especially with Yveltal being at -2 now. So, the fact that Regieleki outsped their Yveltal under Tailwind is a big deal. And so, I think that ended up costing my opponent this game. And so this is an example of, like, when you can look at, like, think about how you lost the game and whether or not you want to, like, think about re-EVing something, right? Because if you, as you see, this Yveltal that we're using actually has pretty good speed investment. So, you can outspeed max speed Regieleki. But in this case, we're not even max speed, but we're almost max speed. Okay, so they're at -2 now, +1 speed. I'm just going to Oblivion Wing and Parting Shot again. At this point, their only win con is like multiple critical hits. There's Airstream onto Incin, no crit. Without the crit there, I think now we win the game, because now your flying type attack is just way weaker going into next turn. So even if you crit Oblivion Wing onto my Yveltal, I don't think that's a KO, because we're at full HP again. So this is like a fun dynamic between the two, most common Yveltal sets right now, though, right? At least I think they're the most common ones, but that's just off experience. Like, I don't know if weakness policy or some other item is trending upwards. But what's interesting is that the Life Orb sets often are max speed, so the fact that they weren't max speed was actually really surprising. But I'm just going to keep clicking Oblivion Wing. At this point, we can Flare Blitz. No need to go for a Taunt or a Parting Shot. Oh, it was physical. That's cool, but that explains how they were doing even less damage. Yeah, wow. So it's like the Intimidates from the Incin actually gave me a lot of value as well. An unexpected amount of added value. They actually did get a crit there on the second hit, but yeah, still not enough. I don't think Yveltal was really ever winning this war, just because like us being slower only helps us because we heal back from the damage that we take with Oblivion Wing. So physical Yveltal is actually something I'm planning on featuring pretty soon because TSL Tang, one of my favorite team builders in Sword and Shield, got to the top 30 at the last rank season with a pretty cool physical Yveltal team with Kyogre and then Screech on Regieleki. So yeah, that game was really scary. It's so interesting to me how much of an impact turn 1 had on the game alone. And if my opponent brought Landorus-T over Rillaboom or had a faster Yveltal, I think I'd lose the game. So we were fortunate that neither of those were the case. And that's why even if like things look bad on paper, like the execution still needs to be there. And sometimes like your opponents don't have the EV spreads or the investment that you're expecting. So yeah, that was a fun one though. So let's look for a third game of the day here. And it is Zacian, Calyrex, Blastoise, Regieleki, Rillaboom, and Incin. This was probably like one of the most common ways that players were running Calyrex Zacian going into European internationals. You also occasionally see Tailwind on these teams, so Whimsicott or Tornadus, for example. But yeah, the idea is that you just have a ton of hyper offense here, right? And Blastoise often carrying Wakandberry here, which actually will cause me a lot of issues. So, Trick Room is interesting here with Bronzong, but the thing is that Bronzong's so weak into Calyrex Shadow Rider. The other question is where the Focus Sash is on my opponent's team, because it could be Sash, Calyrex. That's the most likely answer. And then like a Life Orb or Magnet, Aleki, Wakand, Blastoise, AB, or Miracle Seed, Rillaboom, Shuka, or Healing Berry on Incineroar. Our Aleki not being max speed is kind of rough here. I think in these matchups where like our opponents have the speed advantage with a decent amount of Pokemon, like I really like Groudon and Binu. And I think I'm going to go with Incin and Yveltal in the back. I think Bronzong's just too hard to execute in this matchup because they've got Calyrex Shadow Rider, Blastoise, G-Max Cannonade, and Yawn and Helping Hand Pressure is also really scary. Like, let's say I lead Incin Bronzong, they go Calyrex plus Blastoise. Calyrex could be Imprisoned Trick Room as well, or you could just be like Helping Hand Blastoise into Astral Barrage. So I think there are very few scenarios where I successfully get Trick Room up in the early game. And there's Blastoise Calyrex, exactly. Okay. How do I want to play out turn 1 is the question. This honestly ends up being a pretty good lead, because it makes sense for my opponent to lead that to cover for Bronzong, so I'm actually very happy about the lead matchup at least. But the thing about this team and this lead is that you have so many options on turn 1. So it's like, what do I actually want to go for? Precipice Blades here, decently strong. You know what? I could see my opponent just maxing Blastoise and then Astral Barrage Cannonade into Groudon right now is the thing. They could Hailstorm as well, though. Okay, I'm actually just going to Precipice Blades, max, and then just Vine Lash into Blastoise. Because on my opponent's team, Blastoise is like the one really big, obvious Dynamax option. Regieleki is the other one. So I think in most games, it's Blastoise or Aleki maxing. And then in certain scenarios, you can max Calyrex Shadow Rider. But most of the times with these teams, like Calyrex isn't meant to be the primary or even the secondary Dynamax option. So because of that, and then knowing that I have Yveltal in the back, I can handle Calyrex decently well. Whereas Blastoise is the more likely Dynamax option here, right? So we'll see if it actually ends up being Blastoise maxing. It could be Calyrex max and then you just max Psychic. That's pretty interesting. But I honestly don't mind that very much. They actually are going to max Calyrex. I feel like in so many of the Road to Ranked episodes recently, like, you know, like, normally you don't expect this Pokemon to Dynamax, and my opponents are like, nope, I'm gonna Dynamax. You don't know what you're talking about. But honestly, this is fine. Oh, it's not fine if I get one-shot by Max Psychic now. Oof. Does Max Psychic one-shot me? I think it does. Yeah, okay. Yeah, like, it's so wild. If I actually just, like, Max Guard turn 1 there, we would be in an amazing shape. Like, if they don't KO Venu on turn 1, I love this example, though, because it's in stark contrast from the game against Sableye, because it was the same thing, where in that situation I was, like, worried about a double up. That puts me in a really bad spot. And it actually is Life Orb on Calyrex. Okay. So it's a pretty big deviation from the Focus Sash variants, but this is like the other way to run Calyrex, right? So then this is why when I was in Team Preview, I was trying to guess, like, okay, where is the Focus Sash? And most players are typically going to have Focus Sash on Calyrex in these teams, and so by running Life Orb, you get a pretty big advantage. They also set up Psychic Terrain, so I can't Sucker Punch, which is a really big issue. If I go into Incineroar here and they go into Zacian, where do we go from there? I pressure with Flare Blitz into either slot. If I go into Yveltal, I can switch Groudon out then into Incin. I think that's the option I lean towards right now, because I think Zacian should be coming out for my opponent. It could be Regieleki coming out as well, but... yeah, it's Zacian. Okay, so the thing is, like, I can obviously pivot Groudon out into the Incineroar right now. I actually could also just attack with both Pokemon, but... So basically, the thing here is that my Groudon switching out into Incin is so obvious. And maybe my opponent decides to double up onto Yveltal as a result. So I could make the crazy play of just, like, clicking Precipice Blades right now. What do we think their last Pokemon is, by the way? The Calyrex Max is so big, it covers up. Blastoise is gone, Rilla, Incin, and that one's a Regieleki, right? So... I'm not sure. I wouldn't bring Rillaboom into this matchup. Like, I was surprised to see it in the last one. I'm just going out into Incin and clicking Foul Play. Like... But I actually think this turn might have been the opportunity to just go for Precipice Blades with Groudon. The problem with that is if my opponent just goes Max Psychic into Groudon and then play rough onto Yveltal, I lose both Pokemon and literally lose the game. But if they make the read and double up onto Yveltal here, they'll win. Oh, with Max Phantasm, they might win anyway, actually. And look how much damage that does into Incineroar. Really impressive. Yeah, I just didn't consider the Fake Out breaking Sash and then Max Psychic one-shotting me. Okay, Behemoth Blade here probably doesn't KO though, so I actually think we might be still okay. Nice. This is the strength of maxing Calyrex on these comps, by the way. Like, you don't see it that frequently relative to some of the other Pokemon maxing, but the strength here is like it offers you a defense drop from Phantasm, allowing Zacian to do more damage with its attacks. Let's see. Oh, Incin's their last one. That's excellent for Groudon right now. Okay, sweet. So I'll lose both Pokemon here most likely, but that's fine in this situation because Groudon's amazing in this endgame. Just trying to think if there's anything else to consider. -1 attack, -1 defense, 2 turns of Vine Lash on their end. With Psychic Terrain being up, there's really no value in switching out the Incineroar. Parting Shot here works just to, you know, Oblivion Wing into Incin, but I expect to lose both Pokemon pretty quickly. I guess the value of switching out Incin here, because they can't click Fake Out right now, right? But like, I don't want Groudon to get crit right now. The endgame favors us with Groudon, but it comes down to whether or not I can hit my Precipice Blades. And as long as I conserve it, at least I'm not like just losing it immediately, right? I don't even know if a crit Behemoth Blade gets the KO actually, but oh, interesting. Yeah. So they target the Incin slot. That's exactly why I don't want to switch out into Groudon right now, right? So my Incineroar faints, but Yveltal actually gets to hang around for a little bit longer because they did not choose to click Fake Out there. And yes, Psychic Terrain is up, but Yveltal's not grounded, so Fake Out would actually be successful into that slot. Flare Blitz might just finish me off anyway, but now both Pokemon should just be one Precipice Blades away from getting knocked out. And like, I just really don't want to switch Groudon into a Flare Blitz boosted by the Sun or Behemoth Blade. Okay, they take Recoil. Citrus Berry, no Shuko, which is actually really a big deal here as well. So everyone takes a little bit of Vine Lash damage. And now we bring out Groudon. You know, the thing about Vine Lash and just the residual effects from Blastoise and Venusaur is on turn 1, yeah, I lost my restricted my max Pokemon. But the Vine Lash like setup is just so valuable because it's the perfect position for Groudon, right? In this position, we just click Precipice Blades. There's not very much value in going for anything else. If I protect, then Zacian can actually Swords Dance or Substitute in front of me. And that could just cost me to lose the game. So, no reason to go for anything else here. So, it comes down to whether or not we hit Precipice Blades here. I think maybe we can afford a miss onto Incin. Precipice Blades actually, yeah, Behemoth Blade really doesn't do that much. And it's a double hit here. Nice. Okay. It was a little bit scary after turn 1. Crits the Zacian, but that wouldn't have really mattered there. Yeah. Like, Groudon was just excellent for this endgame scenario. And their team is just somewhat Groudon weak, right? Like, Rillaboom and Blastoise are your best answer. So by answering Blastoise early on and making sure that can't Dynamax, we were in a good spot. But basically, what this game boiled down to was the turn with Yveltal when I switched out into Incineroar. If my opponent just doubles up onto Yveltal there, I'd lose the game. But, like I said, I was considering staying in with Groudon, reading, then doubling into Yveltal and clicking Precipice Blades, and that would be the counter to my opponent doubling up into Yveltal. But then I would also just lose the game, given the play that my opponent made. So, yeah. I really have to remark on this team's consistency and its strength. Like, I was, like, testing a bunch of different teams, and really just having, honestly, very little success with some of the teams that I was trying out. And as soon as I, tried this team, I was like, oh my goodness, like this team is just so consistent across the board. So yeah, I'm just really, really pleased with it. But we've got a nice win streak going on with it, so I'll keep going until we take an L with it. So let's keep it going. All right, next game here, and it is Dialga Kyogre Thundurus Whimsicott. Wow, that's cool. It feels like 2016. And then now you go Urshifu, which then with Thundurus, Urshifu, now you go feels like earlier Sword and Shield VGC. I haven't seen Dialga Kyogre very much. Not knowing the item on Thundurus is scary here. And with Whimsicott and Urshifu on the team, I would either expect Sash on Whimsicott and then ban on Urshifu, or switch your Reject button on Whimsicott. Whimsicott could also be Mentorb. Those are the most common items. And then Urshifu just carrying Focus Sash. Now you go Meteor Beam Power likely here. Thundurus Dialga Kyogre. What are their Dynamax options? It's mainly going to be Thundurus and Dialga. I can't risk it. I mean, I don't think I bring Incin in this matchup. It's just not really good at all, actually. Yeah, so that's pretty easy to eliminate. Whimsicott lead is scary, right? Like Whimsicott Kyogre. Like, I'm so interested in Trick Room here because Groudon under Trick Room is amazing, but, like, I just don't feel confident leading Bronzong here. So I'm going to go Aleki Venusaur because this lead has a ton of flexibility. If you don't lead Whimsicott, for example, then I can Dynamax either with relative ease. If you lead Whimsicott, Venu Pressure Sleep Powder on the slot next to the Whimsicott. So, yeah. Yeah, what else? Like, the main problem here is that they have Urshifu, so if I lead Bronzong, they go, like, Urshifu immediately. That's really bad. That's Whimsicott plus now Ego, though, so Bronzong would have crushed it here. Yeah, maybe I just need to have more conviction and just say, you know what, I'm going to lead it anyway. What do I expect here on turn 1? Meteor Beam into the Aleki slot, Tailwind. You know, I am so tempted to, like, protect and actually just Sleep Powder here. What if I just Dynamax Venusaur? What does that lose to? Because if it is actually Dialga and Kyogre in the back, this is actually a decently strong play. What if I just... I'm actually going to double protect on turn 1 because now Ego only gets one shot at Meteor Beam. So it's like you get the power of Meteor Beam charge off, but then you're relegated to clicking Sludge Bomb or Power Gem the next turn. And if Whimsicott Tailwinds here, I also just burn a turn of Tailwind immediately. Oh, they actually went for Moonblast. Ooh, okay, okay. What? Thank you? Like, we take those, honestly? Because, like, I can just pivot Regieleki out into Yveltal now. Dynamax. And Quake. No? That played out even better than I expected it to. Moonblast on Tavenu just... Okay. It's funny, because I was like, I want to get Trick Room up against my opponent's team, but they actually set it up for me. Now, the reason why I think this is good is because... my opponent's team indexes very heavily on special attackers, with both of their restricteds being special attackers. So Venusaur being able to boost its special defense, as well as AV Yveltal special defense, which also has Snarl and Oblivion Wing, is pretty valuable here. Now the downside is that AV Yveltal is not exactly that good into Dialga plus Kyogre, but given all things considered, like, that's a great turn 1 for us to take, I think. So... we're gonna max. I would assume you just sack Now Ego. It'd be funny if Whimsicott also had Trick Room and like reversed Now Ego's Trick Room, but I think we are in a pretty solid spot. Acid Spray, and it's actually slow enough to outspeed Venusaur under Trick Room. Okay. That might cause me some issues now. Is that Sash on Now Ego? Wow. Huh. Okay. I actually don't mind that much because it denies them a free switch in. The only downside now is that, like... Okay, we get crit, that's fine. Acid Spray, Trick Room. You're not Meteor Beam. Okay. So Venusaur can Vine Lash now. No problem. The only problem is with the Acid Spray, I'm probably going to have to switch out Venu or Protect it next turn. This is also one of those interesting scenarios where I almost don't want to KO Whimsicott because I don't want to give my opponent 2 free switch-ins immediately. So like I'm low-key down to just Snarl here, which covers for any switch-outs, and then Vine Lash into the Whimsicott. Because by doing this, my opponent will only be able to bring in one of Kyogre and Dialga. Unless we actually KO the Whimsicott here, but I wouldn't count on it. Nice. Okay. So... Oh, yep, so it does have the eject button. It's so funny though, because today I was playing like the item guessing game, and I feel like I was wrong on so many counts. Like, I was like, oh, you know, it's gotta be Whimsicott or Urshifu with the Focus Sash here, but it's actually Now Ego with the Focus Sash. Interesting that they bring out Kyogre, okay. I'll take that. You're eating up a Snarl and Vine Lash damage this turn. Ah, don't tell me that's Kyogre. Oof, that is not a good miss. Getting Kyogre to -1 there is so valuable because then I can switch in Groudon with such ease as well, so... It's a little bit frustrating, but it happens. I think right now we assume that my opponent's pretty slow with every Pokemon here. But what's really interesting is that like they can utilize... And the eject button is so good for my opponent there because now they actually get both of their restricteds out, right? And I'm at lower special defense with both, which is not great. So 2 turns of Trick Room here. How do we want to play this out? Venu can max guard this turn. I guess I could just attack with this. I am only at -1 special defense. Ah, man, missing that one on Kyogre really stings, but it happens. They could Hailstorm Venu or Whirlwind Venu and then go for a water type attack onto Yveltal. I went to Aleki and went for Max Guard here. Like, I thought about attacking with Yveltal here, but with the -1 special defense and the rain being up, I'm at risk of just getting KO'd. I don't think Aleki's that good in this endgame anyway. Dialga should max here, in my opinion. Yeah. Man, if I hit that Snarl on Kyogre, how would I have played this turn differently? Would I have stayed in with Yveltal? I think I'd probably still switch out, to be honest. Okay. End up Steel Spiking into the Venu slot, okay. Scald. I want this to KO because I want the free switch in right now into Groudon, so that's good. We still haven't seen a Life Orb on their team. Just wondering if, like, the odds of it being weakness policy on the Dialga. But I can go on into Groudon now. Yeah, the question is how fast the Dialga and Kyogre are, because Groudon is not exactly the fastest here. It's Advent with, like, minimal speed investment. Trick Room's about to expire here. I'm at -1 special defense still. 2 turns of Vine Lash, the last turn at Trick Room. Normally I'd be compelled to switch out Venusaur, but I'm actually interested in, like, just staying in here. Like, I think Press Blades and actually just Sleep Powder into Dialga is interesting, because if they ignore Venu and I get the Sleep Powder off... Okay, Kyogre switches out. I'll take that. Oh, that's a good switch, though. Yeah, I think that's a good play. And it's Wormwind onto Venu. Yeah. Like, I could have switched Venusaur out there into Yveltal, but then Yveltal takes a Wormwind, and that's not great. They are Life Orb. Okay, it's Whimsicott. Could be worse. This was a really cool team, though. Like, my opponent set up Trick Room, and now they can end the game with Tailwind, which I think is awesome. You don't see that frequently. And with Tailwind, I think it's pretty tough to win this game, because now you can just Tailwind target the Yveltal slot. I guess one thing to note is that I do have Sucker Punch on Yveltal, but that's not enough to win this game for me. Maybe I did need to switch Venu out there. I really like how they played this game. The Acid Spray, like, Focus Sash Tech out now you go. Whimsicott having Eject to get forced out. This theoretically should be a pretty favorable matchup for me, but my opponent played it fantastically. And I just never would have expected Focus Sash, like, min speed now ego. These are the techs that can give you a huge advantage, especially in best of one, right? So what do we expect now? Tailwind, and then you just target Yveltal. I timed out there. I didn't even, like, really know what to go for. Press Blades is the option. That's basically what I want to do with the Yveltal instead. But with Wormwind into Yveltal, I actually, yeah, like, I don't have a chance of winning here, I think. Because the thing is, with Tailwind up now, Kyogre just comes out and clicks Water Spout. This is so masterfully done. Like, early game Trick Room, then into Tailwind. That's just so cool. We miss another Press Blades. Like, the misses in this game didn't do me any favors, but I don't know if they actually would have changed the outcome drastically. Wait, hold on. Is there actually a chance to win now because of the miss? Denies them a free switch in. The problem is that Kyogre is just going to click Water Spout to end this game, right? So I still don't really think there's an out. What if I crit? Like, I'm going to Swords Dance here into... Should I Swords Dance or should I just Press Blades? Basically, the Wing Con is like hoping to crit the Kyogre, but even with the crit onto it, I don't think it actually changes anything. Yeah, I'll Swords Dance Sucker Punch here. Even without the timeout, I don't think I could, like, would have really changed much, and Dialga hangs on from that too. That's impressive. Really cool stuff here. I was thinking, hey, like, Venusaur or Trick Room should be amazing to my opponent's team, but then they had a slow Now Ego with Focus Sash and Acid Spray. And that just, like, completely changed the dynamic of the matchup. So this is definitely one of the coolest like Tailwind plus Trick Room combinations I've seen in the format, and that Nihilego just completely caught me off guard. I'm just so used to the Meteor Beam Power Herb set. Yeah, and then the Kyogre switching out to Whimsicott was also just a really safe play. Like, the way they managed the speed in this game was really cool. So yeah, like, Bronze Zone could be an adjustment because they didn't bring Urshifu. It could reverse their own Trick Room. I could have gone for Vine Lash onto the Nihilego immediately, just get that residual chip off. Because, like, Vino under Trick Room plus Yveltal should have looked amazing in this matchup, right? But because they had Acid Spray with Nihilego being as slow as it was, okay. I guess there's a chance they, like... Did we see Water Spout? We already saw Water Spout. Yeah, no, there's no way. What was I going to say? It was funny because after turn 1, I was like, I should be in an amazing position, but they went for Trick Room knowing that the Nihilego was, you know, going to be slow here. And then the Acid Spray is so interesting because it means you can just one-shot either Venusaur or the Yveltal in that position. And then the eject button also caused me issues because it gave my opponent the free switch in that, you know, I was hoping to deny. But there wasn't really too much I could have done around that, in my opinion. Because, like, I had to target that slot. Other than, I guess, switching out Yveltal and then, like, Vine Lash into Nihilego. Well, maybe that's not a terrible option. But the Nihilego was the MVP in this game, in my opinion. Because it set the Kyogre and Dialga for success. And then Whimsicott having Tailwind was also really cool. So, that was honestly an amazing team. Like, and my opponent, like, played it super well. And, you know, that's the thing. Like, you're not always going to guess your opponent's items and sets right, especially in best of ones. And so in best of ones, you can use that advantage in T building, right? Like in the third game, my opponent had Life Orb Calyrex rather than Focus Sash Calyrex. And then in this game, it was Focus Sash on the Nihilego with Trick Room and Acid Spray, which was not what I was expecting in the slightest, right? And so I kind of tunnel vision on a specific Nihilego set just because, like, Nihilego's not exactly very common in this format. So, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if they were just, like, complete min speed. Even then, Nihilego's a pretty speedy Pokemon, so, yeah. It's really cool to see that, and then having both the Tailwind and the Trick Room pressure in turn 1 of the game, I think is really, really fascinating. So that is going to conclude our time with this team. We finally take an L, but to a very cool team, and yeah, I think, you know, can't feel bad losing to that when my opponent just, like, played it really well. So yeah, that's going to be it for this one. Once again, this Yveltal Groudon team, one of the most consistent teams I've tried out in, honestly, a couple of weeks. And so if you're looking for something good, I'd really recommend this one. So thanks to Philip and Team Spirit once again for the team. Leave a like if you enjoy. Check out the details for the team in the description below. Don't forget to answer the question of the day, and I'll see you all soon. All right, peace.